Hello everyone, it's Myeongkoo-jan. Today I am going to read S6 6034 Art and the Poetry Contest. Chapter 1. Mr. Rapon stood at the front of the class. He was holding a list of names. At least it was supposed to be a list. However, there was only one name on it, which made it barely a list at all. There are only 2 days left until the library poetry contest. He told the class, this is supposed to be the list of participants, but so far only one student, Fun, has signed up. Everyone turned to look at Fun. She stared at the floor. Fun never said she wrote poetry, Francine whispered. Fun never says anything. Murphy reminded her. Writing poetry is worse than eating snail, said Binky. If I wrote it, I would not admit it either. Mr. Rapon cleared his throat. The judge for this contest is the famous poet Jack Prelusky, and it's still not too late to enter. I'm a poet, and I don't even know it, said Buster. You've got to rhyme every time, Murphy added. Arthur raised his hand. I know a poem he wrote. It's called My Sister is a Sissy. Can you recite it for us? Asked Mr. Rapon. Arthur wasn't sure. I'll try, he said. My sister is a sissy. She's afraid of dogs and cats. A toad can give her tantrums. She's terrified of rats. And she screams at things with strangers. Things that buzz and things that crawl. Just a shadow of a spider sends my sister up the wall. A lizard makes us shiver, and a turtle makes us squirm. She positively cringes at the prospect of a worm. She's afraid of things with feathers. She's afraid of things with fur. She's scared of almost everything. How come I'm scared of her? That's all, said Arthur, please. He could remember it. If D.W. were my sister, Francine whispered to Murphy, I'd be afraid of her too. An excellent point, Mr. Rapon noted, and speaking as someone who has a sister, I can agree with the sentiment. Besides, now I know a lot of you may not have thought much about poetry before, but it's truly one of the most powerful and fun literary forms. It is also one of the oldest. The Trojan War, for example, was described in a long poem by the Greek poet Homer in around 900 BC. The poem is called The Iliad. Binky frowned. Isn't that the story where some soldiers hid inside a horse? Exactly, said Mr. Rapon. The horse was the source of the force. Of course, commented the brain. Everyone laughed. You're all very talented, Mr. Rapon continued, which is why I'm encouraging you to enter the contest as a special treat. Mr. Prelusky will be speaking at the Elwood City Library after school on Thursday. Francine nudged Arthur. Listen, I'm a poet. Moon, June, spoon, tune, a loon. Will you be done soon? Arthur asked. Before noon, Francine replied sweetly. Arthur was glad to hear it. Chapter 2. It was just after 12 when the class ate lunch in the cafeteria. Fun sat alone, working on her poem while she ate. The Binky and Waddles started talking as they approached her table. Just thinking about poetry makes me sleepy, said Binky. He let out a big yawn. Then he closed his eyes and began to snore. Hey, Binky, said Waddles, wake up. Binky fell back limply. But Waddles reached out to catch him. Come on, Binky, said Waddles. I've got a question for you. Binky opened one eye. What's twice as boring as a poem? Binky frowned. I give up. 2 poems. A lot of the kids nearby laughed, but not Fun. She gathered her things and stood up. You only make fun, she told Binky, because you couldn't write a poem if your life depended on it. Then she walked out. All the kids gasped. Francine was impressed. That's the most Fun has said all year. and it was well put. The brain nodded. Pinky didn't like the way everyone was giggling at him. He ran to catch up with Fun, the other kids. Fun, the other kids followed him out. Fun and Pinky faced each other in the hall. What do you want now? Fun asked. Pinky put his hand on his chest. Maybe I couldn't write a poem fast, he told her, but neither could they, he added, pointing to the other kids. Wait a minute. I could if I wanted to. Me too. No problem. Pinky stared at them. Huh? I could write a better poem than you with my brain tied behind my back. Really? Said Arthur, snickering. I like to see that. Okay, you would you? Yeah, that's what I said. Fun stepped between them. Hold on, she said. I'll bet none of you can write a decent poem. I can so? Francine insisted. Yeah, me too. said Buster. I think I can. So Ellen chimed in. Arthur folded his arm. Maybe Pinky can, but I can. I can do anything, Arthur. I can do anything Arthur can, Pinky declared. I can write a poem like that, Arthur insisted, trying to snap his finger. Fun, I cannot believe you to question my poetic capability, said the brain. Hold me back, Pinky exclaimed. Somebody hold me back, or I will write a poem right now. Quiet, Fun shouted. They all closed their mouths at once. It was not that Fun was such a commanding figure. They had just never heard a yell before. Now Fun continued more calmly. We'll see who can do what. You can each write a poem and enter it in the poetry contest. Anyone who doesn't finish in time has to join the poetry club for the whole year. Is it a bet? Or are you a bunch of chickens? No problem, said Pinky. Prepare to be humiliated. The brain told her. I'm ready, said Francine. You're gonna lose a bet, said Muffy. Arthur and Buster nodded. Fun smiled. Good. How do you write a poem? Arthur whispered to Buster. Buster shrugged. I thought you knew. Arthur shook his head. He had no idea. But how hard could it be? Chapter 3. Arthur and Buster entered the library together. I don't want to go to poetry club for the whole year, said Arthur. Buster shuddered. It would be a fate worse than death. But don't worry. I'll be a cinch to get out of this. We'll just find a good poem and write one like it. They charged up to the front desk. Which way to the good poem? Asked Arthur. Miss Turner looked up from her desk. The good poem? We're short on time, Buster explained. So we don't want to read bad ones. We want to skip right to the good stuff. I see, said Miss Turner. Do you have any other criteria or guidelines? Buster thought for a moment. Well, we need to be able to understand it. Poems can understand will not help. Arthur agreed. All right, said Miss Turner. Do you want old poems or more recent ones? Old, Buster blurted. What difference does that make? Arthur whispered to him. If we're going to borrow from poems, said Buster, it'll be better if the poets are dead. That way they can't get mad at us. Arthur turned back to the librarian. Definitely old. With Miss Turner's help, they quickly gathered armfuls of books and piled them on a table. Buster flipped one open. What do you think of this? The time has come, the Wallace said, to talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax, of cabbages and kings, why the sea is boiling hot, and whether pigs have wings. Buster stared at the page. This is goofy. I don't think I can write like this. Arthur agreed. Let's find one that makes more sense. Buster flipped through another book and read. Something better than his dog, a little dearer than his horse. Buster frowned. What does that mean? Maybe it's a riddle, said Arthur. What's better than his dog, a little deer, and then his horse? I know. Doug, the gullible, they can't do your homework. I've never heard of gullible like that. Me neither, Buster admitted. But wouldn't it be neat? Arthur closed the book. I think we should just skip this guy. Buster picked up a book entitled Tales and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe. Whoa, listen to this title, The Haunted Palace and the Conqueror Worm. He started reading aloud. It was the dead who groaned within. Arthur's eyes opened wide. Wow, still a little strange though. Here's one that sounds more familiar. Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere. That is a good bit, said Arthur. Kind of like a horse galloping, Buster noted. Hey, Paul Revere was riding a horse. Do you think the poet did that on purpose? He might have. Poets are tricky like that. Not me, said Buster. When I write my poem, everything will be very clear. You mean you're ready? Yup, said Buster. Aren't you? I guess, said Arthur, who didn't want to fall behind. My poem is right up here, he added, pointing to his head. But just where up there? Even he didn't know. Chapter 4. At lunch the next day, everyone was discussing the poetry contest. My poem is turning out to be long, said Sue Ellen. I'm only about halfway done. The Binky laughed. Mine is short and sweet. More like short because short means less work, right? Said Sue Ellen. Binky nodded. That's what makes it sweet, he explained. Buster finished slurping his milk through a straw and turned to Arthur. How long did you work on your poem last night? Arthur wasn't sure. I was pretty busy. I had to clean my room and line up the books on my shelves. There were pencils to sharpen, and I emptied my wastebasket twice. Then I took Pal for a walk. Okay, and DW needed help with the homework. DW has homework? Said Buster. Yeah. Yeah, times should have changed since I was in preschool. Well, it wasn't homework exactly, Arthur admitted. She was coloring in a picture. Ooh, that sounds tricky. How were you helping? I made sure she stayed inside the line. Binky let out a deep breath. That's a big job. Yeah, said Buster. So, Arthur, what's your poem about? The subject, the main idea? It's kind of hard to say. Uh-oh, said Buster. I hope it's not like some of those poems we looked at yesterday. The poems that are supposed to mean something, but you can never figure out what that something is. And even if you could, you wouldn't be able to understand it because the words are too big. Don't worry, said Arthur. When the poem is clear to me, it'll be clear to you too. Buster was relieved. The brain, Fun announced, has finished his poem. Arthur was shocked. Already? What did you do? Push a button? The brain nodded. Something like that. Can I read it to you? Any helpful comments are welcome. He pulled out a piece of paper and began to read. I, the brain, will explain what makes rain. Water droplets are what clouds contain. They reach saturation, become precipitation, hit the ground, and roll right down the drain. Wow, said Buster. It rhymes and it's educational. I am done too, said Muffy. She pulled out her own paper. My favorite thing to do is shop. For shoes, shirts, coats, rings. You can never have enough jolly and games until I drop. I love to shop. That's not a poem, said Buster. It's a list. A list can be a poem, replied Muffy. Besides, shop rhymes with drop. Arthur looked worried. Even a shopping poem would have looked good to him if he had managed to write one. But Arthur had nothing written yet, nothing at all. Chapter 5. Arthur sat in his room that night, working on his poem. He wrote, Listen, my children, as I tell you. That was good, of course, at least for a start. Unfortunately, it didn't go very far. Who should be the main character? About a duck and a chicken? Well, that was okay. A duck and a chicken could be friends or just traveling together, but where they were going and how How was he going to make it rhyme? As much as I tell about a duck and a chicken on a bus to Oklahoma, Arthur slumped forward at his desk. Oklahoma, this was not going at all the way he had hoped. His door opened. Arthur, did you hear the news? It was DW. Arthur raised his head. Don't you ever knock? No. Why, brother? Why bother? Arthur shook his head. Little sister should always knock. It should be a law. Whatever you want, DW, now is a bad time. Can't you see I'm trying to work? You didn't look like you were working. You looked like you were sleeping. Now, DW, anyway, I came in to tell you about this news flash on the TV. Didn't you hear me, DW? I have to work. Arthur, getting excited like this will not help you think better. Arthur put down his pencil. You are not going to leave until you tell me, are you? She smiled at him. How did you guess? So there is this gorilla named Joey. Was taken out of the jungle only last week. Now he has escaped from his cage at the zoo. Arthur was interested in spite of himself. Where is he now? He climbed up a building like King Kong, and now there are helicopters and everything all around him. He must be scared, said Arthur. Maybe he just wants to get home to the jungle. DW shrugged. I hope he shows up here. I could use a new friend, and he'd be great for show and tell. Arthur sighed. He didn't want to meet Joy unless the gorilla had some good poems to unload. You don't seem very happy, Arthur. Are you still doing that dumb poem? Hey, I know a great one for you. Roses are red, the violets are blue. My nose smells, and your feet do too. DW rolled on the floor laughing. Arthur just walked up. Doesn't that crack you up, Arthur? She looked around. Arthur had gone into his parents' bedroom to use the phone. He hoped Buster could help him. Hello, Buster is the name. Poetry is my game. Buster, it's me, Arthur. I'm glad at least one of us is making progress. When you're done with your poem, can you help me? Sure, Arthur. So where are you? About halfway. Halfway through the poem? No, halfway through the first line. Oh, Arthur sighed. Well, then I guess you'll be pretty busy for a while. Who knows, Arthur? Lightning might strike at any second. But if it does, send some my way. Then he hung up. The end.